Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would talk about the RCVP. This is a squadron vehicle that came in for Japan last year, and I decided to give it a go because it looked like something I'd be super interested in and kind of really enjoy. It's a light tank, which is very mobile. It also has a funny pogo stick on it, which basically is a big camera, which you can use the commander size for and scout vehicles, which works really, really well. And I've got to be honest, this vehicle does what it says on the tin very well. It's a very good scout vehicle, and a lot of the maps, especially using the pogo stick, you are able to scout pretty much the whole enemy team, and that is really good for your team. The problem that I have with it is the same issue I run into with quite a few of the light vehicles that have stuff like the 30mm Bushmaster 2 Mark 44. It's also something that I ran into with some of the Swedish vehicles that have similar 30 or 35mm guns, where they just don't have enough impact. They don't do enough damage in order to actually make you feel comfortable using the vehicle. So recently, they changed a bunch of BRs, basically pumping up everything in ground to 10.7 and 10.3, which has meant stuff like the RCVP actually faces a lot of 9.3 stuff and 9.0 stuff, which is fantastic. The other problem with this is Germany exists, and Germany at 9.3 is an absolute powerhouse with a bunch of vehicles which are all incredibly meta-defining, including the KPZ-70, the Leopard 1A5, the TAM-2IP, and the Beglet Panzer. And that's only just the mainstays. There are 5, 6, 7, 8 more vehicles you could add to that lineup, which are incredibly strong. And the RCVP, unfortunately, doesn't match up very well against any of them. And the basic reason is because of the gun. This vehicle is huge, right? It's a large vehicle, and it has good mobility, apart from one part of it, which is it cannot brake for some reason. The brakes on this thing are terribly unresponsive. And as a crew, I have my tank driving at full on this crew, so it's definitely not the crew that's the problem. Even after getting the brake system, which increases your brake force by 10%, this thing just keeps going forward. It reminds me of the AML-90. When the AML-90 was first added, when you would try and brake with the vehicle, it didn't matter. You just kept flying off wherever you were going, and the brakes just took so long to actually engage. The RCVP has the same problem. But the main issue with it, the size is fine because, once again, you can use the commander optic to be able to scout stuff and set up, engagements, so they're always in your favor. The problem is the gun. It's just the gun. The gun is the huge problem on this thing, and it makes it infuriating to play a lot of the time. And this is something I found a lot with this 30mm Bushmaster 2. If you don't have a secondary weapon, like if you don't have an ATGM, or if you don't have something that has more killing power than the Bushmaster, there are so many situations that you get into where you are just sat there and you're like, what am I doing here? What is the point in me being here? Why? I'm scouting all of these guys. I need my team to shoot them all, and I need my team to do stuff, and they're not doing the things. So I'm just sat here basically like a damp squib, waiting for something to happen, because you can see all of the enemies. You can scout them all on the map, but you cannot actually do anything against them. You can't aggressively push. You cannot take out people because a lot of the time the Bushmaster does not have enough firepower to be able to actually do something. And there's also a secondary factor to this, which is one which is a little bit more nuanced, okay? One of the things that Gaijin has increased, I suppose is the way to put it, over the years, is just particle density. Whenever an autocannon fires, it creates a cloud of dust wherever the round goes. But because of the fact that the 30mm Bushmaster 2 Mark 44 doesn't have a high fire rate, it doesn't create those clouds of dust that stuff like the Dardo does, for example, or stuff like the Gepard does. So when you go and engage an enemy, it's very easy to engage the RCV back. It doesn't have a lot of armor, and it's huge. So you can just turn and bonk and fire. The other part of it is the internals of this machine, which are very well modeled. It is updated to have everything in it, which is fantastic because every vehicle should be like this. The problem with this is every vehicle isn't like this. So when you do get into these engagements where it's very easy to deal with you, you have certain areas of it where if you get hit, you become completely useless. So if you actually have a look at the vehicle itself, the driver controls are massive and they are around the driver. The driver controls, for some reason on this vehicle, took me 35 seconds to repair. My crew is not bad on this vehicle. There's also a electronic equipment, a power system in the back, which if your booty gets shot where the two guys are, you completely lose all power to your turret, meaning that it doesn't turn, the stabilizer doesn't work, and everything falls apart, which, as I said, is completely fine because that's how these things are supposed to work. There's also an electronic equipment which is around the turret, which does exactly the same thing, which is all fine. The problem is not everything is modeled like this right now, so you have a unfair disadvantage because you actually have the updated model, and that can be very annoying. And it means in a lot of engagements where you're trying to deal with enemies with this gun, which once again doesn't do a lot of damage, even after penetration, there was a lot of times where what would happen is I would try and penetrate a target and, you know, it would pen and then it would just yellow a crew member and then I would just get shot back and instantly nuked. And that was very annoying, but generally it just didn't help at all, which just kind of sucked. One of the things I would say about the survivability that was quite nice was it has spore liners. And I know this sounds really weird because it's quite a light vehicle, but on the top of it, on the top of the turret and on where the driver is and also where the back is, there's a spore liner which covers it from above. So I would actually survive quite a few hits from aircraft usually. So they would try and hit me with missiles or they would try and hit me with bombs. There was a few days where just guided missiles would, for some reason, the thing that I was just getting nuked by over and over again, and the spore liners did help with that, but it didn't really matter. I still got hammered with it. This thing does have the track IRST, which is really nice, but it doesn't have the best elevation, only 45 millimeters. And with that low fire rate of the gun, it can be quite hard to hit aircraft which are wandering about. The power system at the back as well, so whenever you get shot in the booty, you know, you don't just lose all of those systems, you also lose all of your power, which just sucks. And yeah, that's another one of those updated DM things. So this vehicle, when I played it, as I said, as a recon vehicle, which is technically what it is, you were able to scout everything. But it left you in situations where you weren't able to overpower the enemy with firepower, so you have to rely on your teammates to do that. And that doesn't happen. That doesn't work in War Thunder. That will never work in War Thunder because relying on other people, generally in a multiplayer game, if you don't know them, is never going to be a recipe for a win. So the biggest problem with the RCV is the fact that stuff like the Type 16, for example, which is at the same BR, 9.7, and also at rank 7, is here. So why in the hell would I take something like an RCV or an ICV over the Type 16, which has the Type 93 shell, which has the 105, which has the decent reload on it, right? The standard reload for the 105. So it's not, you know, it's not cripplingly bad for the vehicle. Why would I? The Type 16 has a low profile. It's technically got the same mobility going around. It has, you know, the better gun, and it has, of course, the very good thermals too. The only reason to take the RCV is on specific maps where you can stick the camera up above things, so, you know, you can scout everything. But then you need your team to do stuff, and if they don't do stuff, you're basically worthless. So yeah, it's a problem with this machine. Just the firepower just makes it so much harder to play compared to everything else. And hopefully at some point something can be done about that, whether it's a fire rate change or whether it's just a reduction in BR, I don't know. But I feel like whatever happens with this, it still will be unpleasant to play, because whenever you're in a situation in War Thunder where you cannot deal with the enemy that you are staring at, there is nothing you can do about it. And it gets you annoyed. And that's what happens in this machine over and over and over again. There is no additional thing that you can do with this to try and help it out. The RCV, it took us 83 battles to spade it, which is quite a lot, by the way, at this level. We had 104 ground kills, 10 air kills, 67 deaths, and a 54% win rate. So if you had a look at those stats, they're pretty good. And when it doesn't take into account all of the scouting assists that we had and all this stuff, but the experience of it was nowhere near as fun as something like the Type 16, which is just infinitely better in terms of what to play. I'm not really looking forward to playing the standard ICV, which is basically just the RCV without the camera. Seems kind of worthless, in my opinion, once again, comparing it to the Type 16. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.